Quick question. Knowing what we do now about Shanks, does it really make sense that he'd lose his arm to a mere sea beast? Or was Oda tripping? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Anyway, on to the video. On a gloomy and chaotic battlefield, we are introduced to this world by our protagonist. Just like the death-filled field or the heavy clouds darkening the sky, our protagonist's tone is somber and heavy. Like a cliché from web novels or manga, one day, when he opened his eyes, he was already in a medieval fantasy world. He didn't know how it happened. Maybe Truck-kun paid him a visit, or a thick mommy sat on his face, suffocating him to death. Anyway, he fought desperately for survival, even becoming a mercenary, slashing enemies again and again just to stay alive. The protagonist's monologue is interrupted when a cunning enemy sacrifices himself to stop his rampage. Holding the protagonist down, the enemy creates an opening for his partner, who sneaks up, thirsty for blood. Before the barbarian can land his attack, a fierce redhead on a majestic steed cuts him down, saving our protagonist. She reminds him to stay focused. Losing concentration on the battlefield means certain death. Raising her sword high, she orders the trumpets to sound, signaling the real start of the desperate battle. As forces clash, drawing blood and ending lives, our protagonist continues his monologue, wishing only to survive. We get a stunning shot of him sitting on a rock, surrounded by corpses, bathed in the rays of a setting sun. It's easy to see why he chose that moment for his monologue. The scene is epic. Stepping on the head of a fallen enemy, the redhead congratulates him for surviving again. Approaching him closely, she tenderly tells him to take care of his face and not let his handsome features get hurt. Finally, a protagonist who gets the girl from the start. He's definitely clapping the boss. I'm so jealous. Their tender moment is interrupted by the rain, bringing the protagonist back to reality. The mysterious Amazonian mommy reassures him, calling him Aaron and telling him she likes the rain. Though her face is hidden, we know she's naturally charming. Just look at those lips. In the present, on a rainy day similar to the one in his memories, Aaron stands in the rain, recalling the words of his beloved. She had wanted to go east when the war ended, to a place where it rained often, and she asked him not to forget her. Now considerably more ragged and worn by life, Aaron stands under the shelter of a building, catching raindrops in his hand. His eyes are hollow, and a faint stubble lines his chin. A man who's clearly been through a lot. His moment of reflection is cut short by a loud whistle, and the culprit shouts at the marching guards, instructing them to catch an escaped criminal. Two men, one with brown hair, the other with black, join Aaron under the shelter, calling him captain. Aaron asks where the other members are, and they tell him they're on their way. The brown-haired man expresses surprise that the gentle Hans caused such a big incident, while the black-haired man scoffs, saying he always knew Hans was trouble. He suggests that Hans, being a mage, probably signed a contract with a demon. At the mention of demons, Aaron pauses to think. The brown-haired man ignores the accusation and teases the black-haired man, saying he's just mad that Hans took the title of most handsome. The black-haired man argues that the title is still his. No one took it away. Tired of their bickering, Aaron walks away, leaving the two idiots to their argument. Watching him go, the brown-haired man jokes that Hans's new nickname should be Hans, who's handsome even if only his head is left. Ignoring them, Aaron reflects that Hans would probably be hanged if caught. At the Casertic Outer Fortress Guard headquarters, Aaron meets with Manuel, the guard commander. The chubby, scheming man asks why Aaron is late, and Aaron replies that he overslept. Manuel, striking a devious pose, questions Aaron about his connection to Hans. Through a flashback, we learn that Aaron and Hans were once close. Hans used to call him brother, and they remained friendly even when Hans entered the Magic Academy. But Aaron downplays their relationship, saying they barely exchanged greetings. Walking closer, Manuel tells Aaron that the incident isn't simple. It involves a lord's daughter, and Hans stole something he shouldn't have. Looks like Hans is a lady killer too, stealing a noble's daughter. This story is full of rogues. Tapping Aaron on the arm, Manuel informs him that capturing Hans would please the Lord. Manuel may be a short king, but we've got to show some love for him. He knows how to play the game. Switching to a more intense tone, Manuel warns Aaron that Hans must be brought in dead or alive. Aaron agrees to do his best, though he silently laments that, because of Hans, he might lose his own head if things go south. Brownhair calls out, announcing that Casertic Outer Fortress Guard Unit 4 has assembled. The full squad is revealed, and as expected, they look like a mismatched bunch, clumsy yet dangerous. The squad marches through the slums of District 7, enduring the rain. Blackhair grumbles about how filthy the place is, doubting Hans would hide there. Brownhair agrees, joking that Hans has a weak stomach and would be running around looking for a toilet in this mess. Having heard enough, Aaron turns to them with a menacing look, warning them to shut their mouths. He's tired of medieval guys talking about drinks when their lives are on the line. Spotting a suspicious figure sitting in an alley, Aaron instructs him to remove his hood for identification, his hand on the hilt of his sword. The hooded figure laughs menacingly, calling Aaron by name and preparing for a reunion. Before he can say more, Aaron clocks him in the jaw, sending him crashing into the mud. In a chilling tone, Aaron asks if the figure was the one causing trouble. The figure, confused, says he's just a herbalist reporting a theft. Aaron, realizing his mistake, casually remarks that he looked familiar. The herbalist, now aggrieved, curses about the shitty day he's having. First, his herbs were stolen, and now the guards are hitting him. He wonders why someone would steal his stash of grimroot, a common plant. Aaron, sensing something suspicious, asks which way the thief went. We fast forward to a lone figure leaning against an alley wall, panting and bleeding. Wincing in pain, the figure is startled when Aaron's voice calls out from behind. Standing tall, Aaron asks why Hans, who always kept things clean, had cut off his own hand. Telling him it's over, Aaron instructs Hans to surrender while he's still being nice. But Hans isn't giving up. Chanting a spell, he conjures a massive water ball from the rain-soaked ground. Aaron curses at the sight, shocked by the size of the magic. Apologizing, Hans attacks, sending the water ball hurtling toward Aaron. Aaron barely holds his ground, but Hans prepares another spell, conjuring an even larger water ball. Fed up, Aaron charges forward with blinding speed, closing the distance to engage Hans in close combat. Hans, shocked, rushes to finish his spell, but Aaron clocks him again, canceling the magic. With a menacing look, Aaron swings his sword, ready to end Hans's life. Powerless, Hans sheds a tear, calling Aaron brother one last time. Hearing the word brother, Aaron stops, leaving only a shallow wound across Hans's neck. Hans asks if Aaron will spare him, but Aaron ignores the question, checking for a demon's mark near Hans's heart. Finding none, he asks why Hans did something so stupid without being a demon's minion. Hans replies that it's hard to explain now, but someday Aaron will understand. Frustrated, Aaron sighs. He pours a healing potion on Hans's wounds, eliciting a scream, and tells him to follow. As they walk, Aaron reflects on whether losing a hand is punishment enough for Hans's crimes. Ultimately, he concludes it's not up to him. This medieval world deals only in guilt or innocence. At the secret passage, Aaron tells Hans to get lost. Hans starts to speak, but Aaron cuts him off with a punch to the face. With a menacing gaze, he tells Hans to get into the hole and disappear. Hans, gathering himself, expresses his thanks, calling Aaron brother again. As Hans walks away, Aaron reminds him not to call him that. We learn that in the small fortress of the Kasserdic eastern frontier, Hans completely disappeared. The handsome Hans, the kind Hans, the friendly Hans. Those were all names people used to call him. The scene shows a woman carrying her laundry back to the house, enjoying the morning sunshine. A gentle breeze, however, sweeps her underwear away. As she helplessly watches it fly off, we are informed that all those nicknames were used to describe Kasserdic's ladies' underwear thief. Turns out, Hans was a serial pervert, stealing women's underwear. What a down-bad man of culture. In this medieval world, where cleanliness, law, and ethics are utterly primitive, our protagonist is a guard captain, doing his best to survive in this damned chaotic world. Brownhead smacked the table, cursing Hans, the panty-stealing bastard. His anger was palpable as he wondered where the hell Hans had disappeared to. He wasn't alone. The full squad was back together again, as mismatched as ever. Blackhead, whose real name turned out to be Kale, bore the title Previous Handsome Man, and was just as frustrated, irritated by their inability to locate Hans, even after they'd turned the entire fortress upside down. Brig, the newest member of the squad and carrying the nickname Youngest, chimed in, speculating that Hans, being a mage, must have used his magic to create some sort of gateway. Poole, the fourth member and known as Snake Eyes, mocked the idea, scoffing that if magic were all-powerful, they wouldn't even need their arms. His sharp, angry tone cut through Briggs' suggestion like a knife. The squad's banter was interrupted by the fifth and final member, Carter, better known as Sleepyhead. With sunken eyes and an exhausted look, he pleaded with them to keep it down, claiming he hadn't slept for days, thanks to Hans the pervert, and that he might die if he didn't get some rest soon. Brownhead sighed helplessly at Sleepyhead's exaggeration, calmly telling him there was no way he'd die from lack of sleep. Snake Eyes, however, begged to differ. He remarked that if anyone could die from it, it would be Sleepyhead, and the rest of the squad agreed. They even brought up Sleepyhead's notorious past as proof, mentioning how he'd thrown up just the day before from being so sleep-deprived. Fed up with the conversation, Brownhead declared that the search for Hans was officially over and told everyone to get some rest. We learn that his real name is Vermin, and he's unofficially known as Second Place, a title he likely gave himself. As the scene transitioned to our Chad, their conversation lingered, with the squad speculating whether it was their captain, Aaron, top dog, and leader of Unit 4, who had helped Hans escape. In Manuel's office, Aaron stood obediently in front of a mysterious figure. Lighting his cigar, the figure introduced himself as William. Aaron, visibly anxious, knew who this man was. The constable of the fortress. Someone with the power to cut off his head in an instant or lock him in a dungeon for the rest of his life. He was the top authority among Casertic's guards. Wasting no time, William immediately questioned Aaron about his connection to the pervert Hans. Standing up, William remarked that it was especially suspicious since Aaron had patrolled District 7 alone, a district guards couldn't even look into. His meaning was clear. Aaron let Hans go. Maintaining his composure, Aaron simply replied that there was nothing in District 7 except for some poop. His response was equally cryptic. "Do you have proof?" The two men locked eyes, silently challenging each other. Breaking the tension, William called out to Manuel, the scheming bastard, causing the short king to nearly jump out of his skin, his aristocratic wig flying off. William, clearly unimpressed, casually noted how good the cigars tasted, sarcastically praising Manuel for affording them on his meager salary. Manuel, catching on to the insinuation, quickly claimed they were a gift from a distant relative. Growing more serious, William asked if Manuel had stolen or embezzled them. The short king, tripping over himself, vehemently denied the accusation. William, his aura suffocating the room, reminded them that anyone living in that castle who committed a crime or helped someone else do so would die by his hands. To make his point, he used Aaron's armor as an ashtray, putting out his cigar while leaving a clear message: "I'm watching you." Aaron, nonchalantly brushing off the burn marks, plastered on a fake smile and told William he'd keep that in mind. The scene shifted to the castle streets, where the evening sunset bathed everything in a beautiful golden light. Our boy Aaron, still irritated by the whole ordeal, cursed the damned Middle Ages and its lack of human rights. Despite his frustration, he couldn't help but think Hans might have actually escaped. His train of thought was interrupted by a shrill scream coming from a nearby alley. In the alley, a ruffian held a woman in his arms, commenting on her beauty and suggesting that he might stay a little longer to dip his chip in the sauce. The woman, Henna, owner of the Laughing Rabbit Inn, was having none of it. She demanded the thug let her go, but her words only made the ruffians laugh louder. A redhead with soon-to-be clapped by MC syndrome sarcastically told the ruffian to be gentle with Henna, reminding him that they were new to the village and just wanted to make some local friends, the kind that shared a bed. The rest of his gang burst into laughter, clearly enjoying the scene. Henna, however, warned them that they were getting involved in something troublesome and might regret it. The sly chuckles from the inn's regulars confirmed that they knew exactly what she meant. Unfazed, the redhead loomed over Henna, asking what would happen if they didn't back down. He grabbed her bust, taunting her with the idea that no guard would come to her rescue in such a shabby inn. Thankfully, his rambling was cut short by the arrival of Aaron. The inn's regulars, seeing him, called out his name. Seizing the opportunity, Henna darted behind him, while the ruffians tensed up, sensing the shift in the air. Aaron, ignoring the thugs for a moment, casually told Henna 10 days. She countered with 5, insisting that it wasn't as bad as last time and reminding him that, as a guard, it was his responsibility to deal with such things. Their odd back and forth left the thugs visibly confused. Annoyed by being ignored, one of the thugs charged at Aaron with a raised fist. Still in the middle of his negotiation with Henna, Aaron calmly finished by asking for 8 days. With the deal sealed, he turned his attention to the thug, grabbing him by the face mid-charge. Eren quipped about the thug's foul medieval talking habit, before yeeting him across the room, crashing him into his fellow ruffians. Eren, now in demon mode, declared it was time to educate the ruffians. The redhead, finally realizing what he'd gotten himself into, broke out in a sweat. The inn's regulars, anticipating the beatdown, cheered and ordered more beer, eager for the show. They were all followers of Eren, the rogue captain of Kaserdik's guards, and they knew what was coming. Eren, after delivering a barrage of punches and kicks, commented that there were no bad medieval people, just those who needed to be beaten up. With a final charged punch, he pinned the redhead to the ground, ending the fight. As the locals cheered, ordering more drinks, Eren wondered if he should give them a lesson too. But before he could decide, the redhead, in a desperate move, tried to unsheath his axe for a sneak attack. Eren, his gaze icy, asked if he really wanted to go that route. The redhead, sensing the danger, immediately gave up any thoughts of resistance. With that, Eren clocked out for the day. Later that night, as he slept, memories of his past flooded in. We saw the moment he was reincarnated into this world, lost and confused. His saviors had given him the name Eren. The scene shifted to a city in flames, where a woman, a fierce Amazonian mommy, smiled warmly at him, even in her dying moments, urging him to escape and live on. Startled awake from his nightmare, Eren drew his sword. His breath labored, his emotions raw. Whatever had happened in the past had left deep scars, but that story would have to wait. The next morning, Eren, still troubled by the events of the previous night, diligently swung his sword. It had been 6 years since he found himself in this world, and he wondered just how much longer he'd have to keep up his routine. His solitary practice was interrupted by the arrival of a mysterious man. Watching from a distance, the man clapped slowly, commenting on Eren's swordsmanship. "No frills," he said, "just pure skill." He remarked that he hadn't expected to find such a proficient swordsman at the border of Kasserdik. His voice carried a mix of surprise and curiosity. Eren turned to face him, his eyes quickly taking in the details. The man's armor bore the symbol of the Fenner family, a well-known and noble house. At his waist, a spiral rapier hung, its ornate design marking him as no ordinary traveler. The realization hit Eren instantly. The bastard standing before him was a knight. Knights were more than just men of combat. They were superhumans, wielders of aura, and the defenders of humanity against demons. The knight standing before Eren was one of these elite warriors, likely from the distant Bolt Fortress. Eren tightened his grip on his sword, his suspicion rising. What was a knight doing in this remote area? Was he sent by the Empire? Sensing Eren's distrust, the knight smiled warmly. "You've got nothing to worry about," he said. He admitted he had gotten carried away after witnessing Eren's sword skills, and approached without thinking. Growing more serious, he asked if Eren belonged to any knightly order. Before Eren could respond, a loud voice called out, addressing the knight by name. Ben. Approaching them with her long hair flowing in the wind was the beautiful and graceful Vivian Fulputz, daughter of the Lord of Kasserdik. Flashing a bashful smile, she lightly scolded Ben for leaving her behind, despite being her escort. Noticing the conversation, she quickly apologized for interrupting. Following protocol, Eren knelt before her and introduced himself as captain of Squad 4. With a formal salute, he cut a striking figure, majestic and silent in his riz. Vivian, smiling brightly, accepted his greeting and apologized for the trouble caused by Hans, the notorious underwear thief. Turns out it was her underwear Hans stole. What a daring down bad man. Eren, maintaining his stoic demeanor, simply responded that it was no trouble at all, though he inwardly questioned why Vivian needed a knight from Bolt Fortress as her escort. Vivian, unaware of Eren's doubts, gently led Ben away. She apologized again for interrupting his training and encouraged Eren to continue working hard for the safety of Kasserdik. Despite her charm and bright smile, there was something about her that seemed off, though Eren couldn't quite put his finger on it. As they left, Ben glanced back at Eren, puzzled. He was sure Eren was a knight, so why had Vivian referred to him as just a guard? Eren, still calm and composed, watched them go. Something felt strange, but he decided it wasn't his problem. It was better to focus on his duties. But Eren's day was far from improving. Manuel's voice suddenly echoed through the training yard, calling for him, startling him out of his thoughts. Later, at the inner fortress, Aaron stood motionless in front of a door, hesitant to enter. He had already been chewed out by Manuel for the previous night's incident at the Laughing Rabbit Inn. The thugs Aaron had beaten were actually hired mercenaries, and now Aaron was left to clean up his own mess. Even worse, the person overseeing the situation was someone Aaron didn't want to deal with. Before Aaron could dwell on his dread, a booming voice from inside ordered him to enter, nearly knocking him off balance. Timidly, Aaron stepped into the room. Inside, the intimidating figure of Nova awaited. Kaserdic's administrative officer, her aura radiated palpable anger as she scrunched the paper in her hand. "If you don't like your job, just quit," she snapped. "Stop making things harder for everyone else." Aaron, having expected this from her fiery personality, steeled himself. He had planned to use a strategy borrowed from Kale, a local bachelor known for his charm, by offering compliments and diffusing the situation. However, Aaron's attempt to flatter Nova fell flat, and instead, he came across as an awkward creep, only making her more furious. Sighing heavily, Nova let the issue slide, knowing it was pointless to argue with him. Shifting to a more serious tone, she informed Aaron that the mercenaries he had beaten up were supposed to be sent to Bolt Fortress. Aaron dismissed them as worthless, but Nova wasn't having it. She told him that since he had caused the problem, he would have to take on their job. Refusal wasn't an option, though she promised compensation for his troubles. Aaron found the deal reasonable and accepted, asking what the task involved. Nova explained it was a simple carriage escort. The scene shifted to a gloomy road at sunset, where a convoy was already underway. Aaron, part of the escort team, felt uneasy. The number of mercenaries seemed excessive, and they were all heavily armed, as though preparing for a battle. Something wasn't right. Curious, Aaron asked a nearby mercenary who was riding in the carriage. To his surprise, it was the leader of the thugs he had beaten up at the inn. The man, now wary of Aaron, instantly became defensive. Despite their banter, the mercenaries soon began discussing their camp for the night. They were heading to a nearby village, one Aaron seemed to recognize. As they arrived in Noctville, the village was eerily deserted under the pale light of a full moon. The mercenaries joked nervously about demons being the cause of the villagers' disappearance. Meanwhile, the red-headed mercenary, now following Aaron, asked to tag along as Aaron wandered away from the group. The carriage, briefly shown in the background, carried a mysterious figure, silently smiling within. Aaron ignored the redhead's questions as he wandered deeper into the village. His mind was elsewhere, recalling the last time he visited this place. He had gifted a child a book, and the boy's face had lit up with joy as he called Aaron Sir Knight. As they walked, the redhead cursed, stepping into a pool of blood. Aaron warned him not to look up, but the man, ignoring his advice, glanced skyward and was met with a horrific sight. Countless corpses crucified and hanged in neat rows. Unable to handle the gruesome scene, the mercenary vomited on the spot. Aaron remained calm, though visibly disturbed by the sight. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind him, catching him off guard. Turning quickly, he was met with an unexpected sight. He asked her what she was doing there. It was Lady Vivian, the daughter of the Kasserdic Lord. Back at the makeshift camp of the convoy, our Chad Aaron and his perverted thug lackey chill by a campfire. The other NPC mercenaries, in a bid to tame their hunger, line up for some grub. The same kind those MCs from isekai mangas always claim tastes amazing, even though we all know food in the Middle Ages wasn't that good. But hey, those MCs get hella bitches, so what do I know? Anyway, there's chatter among the mercenaries, who are marveling at the amount of meat in the stew, clearly a first for them. One of them comments that if the food had been awful, he would have deserted immediately. The pervy thug comments on how laid back the mercenaries seem, wondering how they could still eat after seeing the corpses. He's curious, however, about who could have done something so vile to the villagers. His musings are interrupted by a mysterious figure walking up to them. He answers the pervy thug's question, saying it was a sacrifice. The mysterious man, who I'll call Teabag from now on, further explains that what they found was a ritual where humans were offered to demons as sacrifices. Sitting down by the campfire, Teabag, noticing our Chad hadn't eaten anything, offers him some wine. Aaron, however, rejects the offer, saying alcohol dulled his senses. Teabag, accepting the rejection, offers the wine to the pervy thug, and as expected, the guy immediately accepts. He's not one to turn down a free drink. Aaron, nonchalantly watching their interaction, warns the pervy thug, telling him he'd kill him if he threw up. Teabag, finally sharing his name, introduces himself as John, the leader of the convoy. He notes the duo's unfamiliar faces and asks if they're mercenaries. Our boy denies this, saying he's only there for a part-time job. Teabag, not wanting to pry, changes the topic and advises the duo to eat well and get plenty of sleep. He believes the trip won't be as peaceful as they expect, which greatly shocks the pervy thug. Before he can clarify, their attention is drawn to the distant figure of Lady Vivian and her guards. The mercenaries, enchanted by her beauty, comment on her nickname, the Flower of the East. The pervy thug, as expected of someone down bad, adds that he'd seen her earlier, and she was a hell of a mommy. Teabag replies that he already had a feeling this wasn't an ordinary escort mission, but even he didn't expect to see a lady and her knight there. Our boy Aaron, maintaining his silence, thinks back to their earlier interaction with Lady Vivian. After questioning her on why she was there, Vivian, still donning her brilliant smile, answered that she was out for a casual stroll. She found it suffocating to stay in the castle all the time and was heading to Bolt Fortress for a little breather at her father's suggestion. I don't know, guys. My mommy radar is sending me warning signals about her. But let's just wait and see. Aaron, obviously suspicious, asked if she was talking about the Lord of Casserdick. Before Vivian could answer, Ben stopped her, telling her she'd said enough. He added that knowing too much came with heavy responsibilities. Mockingly glaring at Aaron, he advised him to only know what was appropriate for his position, calling him Captain of the Guards. I don't know why, but this scene reminds me of those NTR mangas right before the MC's girl gets clapped. Anyone else getting the same vibe? Back at the camp, Aaron, still lost in thought, is called out by Teabag. The latter comments on his unusual calmness in the odd situation they're in. A demon might appear. Yet Aaron doesn't seem scared at all. Aaron nonchalantly responds that they have a knight with them. The same knights trained for the sole purpose of eradicating demons. They're the Empire's elite force, and as long as they have one on their side, they should be good. He further adds that he also has his sword with him. As long as he has his sword and the slightest chance of survival, he's always made it out alive. Although his words are positive, from the sad look in his eyes, we can tell he's been through a lot, with deep scars and loneliness hidden within those brown eyes. Teabag, picking up on his tone, simply replies, "I see," and wishes him luck, letting an unnerving silence fall over the trio. The scene switches to Aaron inside a house, picking up a book. With a slight smile on his face, he nostalgically gazes at it, thinking back to when he gifted it to the little boy of the village. He remarks that it's been a while since they last saw each other, and the boy, Horn, must have grown taller. Aaron, lost in his memories, seemingly fails to notice a figure creeping up on him. The figure, hoping to catch him off guard, lunges at him, but our boy, having already sensed it, swiftly turns and lands an elbow blow to the figure's head, knocking it back. Turning to confront the stealthy assailant, Aaron is shocked to realize it's an undead, a zombie. The zombie, with a glint in its eyes, charges at Aaron again, craving his blood. But Aaron, launching his counter, swings his sword, cleanly slashing the zombie in two, its half-body dropping loudly to the ground. Somberly gazing at the fallen foe, Aaron wonders where it came from. His thoughts, however, are interrupted by a shrill scream from outside the house. The voice turns out to be the pervy thug, swinging his sword in a panic and begging the zombies not to come close to him. Isn't he supposed to be a tough mercenary? What the hell is this shit? Aaron, coming to his aid, swiftly decapitates the zombie, sending its head flying. He looms over his foe's fallen body with a somber expression on his face. The pervy thug, noticing his arrival, clings to our boy like a damsel in distress. Aaron, irked by his reaction, tells him to calm down and asks where everyone else is. The pervy thug, still in tears, replies that they're screwed. Everyone in the convoy had passed out and won't wake up. It's like they've been put under a sleeping spell. Aaron, gradually realizing the danger of the situation, wonders if it's magic. However, if that's the case, how come only the pervy thug and himself were unaffected? Suddenly realizing something, he notes that it must have been the meal from earlier. However, since it wasn't poisoned but only drugged, he deduces that the mastermind's goal is to capture someone alive, and that someone is most likely Vivian. The pervy thug, drawing our boy from his thoughts, points toward a horde of zombies, telling him they're screwed. The horde, sensing the vitality in them, collectively charges at the duo. Aaron, still unfazed, calmly walks forward. Drawing his sword, he muses he'll warm up with the low-level zombies before the real game starts. Activating Demon Time, his aura completely changes, the sheer pressure of his presence pressing down on everyone. With a simple swing of his sword, he casually splits a zombie in two. Continuing his rampage, he unleashes a flurry of slashes, dicing the zombies into bits, blood and gore following his every move. With a mighty swing, he delivers a vertical slash on an unsuspecting zombie, cleanly splitting it in half from head to toe. Somberly staring at the advancing horde, his body bathed in the blood of the vanquished, he asks if that had finally woken them up, calling it the army's wake-up call. Unrelenting, he lunges at the incoming horde, unbothered by their numbers, his sword ringing in the starry night. After a while, Aaron, now standing in the rain amidst the fallen zombie bodies, casually wipes the blood from his face. Although his breathing is a little labored, he appears to be completely fine. Hearing a distant growl, he curses, wondering if he'd missed one. Turning around, Aaron is shocked by the sight before him. Blonde hair, green attire. The eyes that were once full of life are now gone, replaced by hollow black sockets, leaking dark blood. Aaron somberly stares at the approaching zombie. Just as he expected, the boy from his memories, Horn, had indeed grown taller. We flash back to 2 years prior when Aaron was fleeing from his pursuers. He had settled down in a small village, hiding from his chasers. Horn, still a young and vibrant kid back then, called out to Aaron, addressing him as Sir Knight. Aaron, lying on the forest floor, teasingly asked Horn who he was calling Sir Knight. Horn replied, saying he had seen it in a book, that knights were strong and cool. Horn, the son of a village farmer, loved books despite his humble background. Showing Aaron a picture of a knight in armor, he beamed, saying Aaron was the strongest and coolest person he knew. Aaron rubbed his hair, telling him he loved to talk nonsense. Horn, feigning annoyance, complained, but it was obvious he liked the attention, just as Aaron did, as shown by his broad smile and peaceful demeanor. He genuinely liked the kid. Their happy moments are a sharp contrast to the present, where the boy is now an undead, and Aaron is left with no option but to slay him. Back then, even after Aaron had settled in Kasserdic Fortress, he still visited Horn. He remembered the glint in Horn's eyes when he told him about the library in Kasserdic, full of books. He told Horn that librarians were buried in books all day, and the bookworm visibly glowed in anticipation, sharing his wish to be a librarian one day. Aaron encouraged him, saying it was a perfect fit for someone like Horn. We switch to the present, where Aaron has no choice but to kill Horn. As he readies his sword, he reflects on how some believe demons feed on human fear. His sword, although mighty enough to cause a powerful gust of wind, falls short of reaching the kid. His labored expression clearly indicates his troubled mindset and the unfair choice he's forced to make. He flashes back to a time when Horn came to him bruised. Aaron had asked what happened, and Horn replied that his father had beaten him for expressing his wish to become a librarian. The angry father had insisted that a farmer's son could only be a farmer. The incident had deeply hurt Horn, who had cried uncontrollably, and all Aaron could do was watch. Aaron knows people's beliefs are wrong. Demons don't feed on fear, they feast on despair. Dropping his sword, Aaron hugs Horn. Holding the undead boy tightly, he tells him he was never a knight. His hand rests on Horn's head, just as it did back then. As he pulls the boy closer, he says he was just a fortress guard. With that, he snaps Horn's neck, peacefully ending his life. As the boy's undead hands drop motionlessly to the side, Aaron continues to hold him, overwhelmed by sorrow. The gloomy weather mirrors Aaron's mood, with rain falling endlessly from the sky. Despite the horde of monsters behind him, Aaron doesn't seem to care. His entire focus is on Horn, now lying dead before him. Pervy Thug, with perfect timing, calls out to Aaron, saying he's finally managed to wake up the sleeping mercenaries. Leading the charge, the mercenaries lunge at the zombies, intent on wiping them out. Aaron, still focused on Horn, closes his eyes and tells him to rest in peace, hoping nothing more will trouble him after death. His painful goodbye amidst the chaotic battle going on around him is heartbreaking, enough to bring a tear to the eye. Some manly tears. A fiery explosion sounds, adding even more chaos to the tragic night. The mercenaries quickly identify it as coming from the temporary residence of Vivian. Grabbing his sword, Aaron slowly walks toward the burning building, leaving one final whisper for the fallen horn. "I'll avenge you." We switch to Vivian's residence, where, like everything else fucked up that night, a massacre is underway. The bodies of guards and maidservants lie sprawled on the ground, lifeless. The sole survivors are an unconscious Vivian and her knight, Ben, who seems to be on his last leg. Ben comments that, due to rumors of an attack on Vivian's life in Cassardec, they had secretly planned to flee to Bolt Fortress. The rumor turned out to be true. Although he never expected them to target such a secret procession, he stands tall, his rapier glowing with his aura, refusing to back down. He quips that holding a sword to protect a lady is part of the happiness and romance of being a knight, even if the opponent is a vile demon. Staring resolutely at the demon, he warns it to step back. The demon, grinning sadistically, remarks that Ben is a knight who likes to yap. Catching on to Ben's scheme, the demon informs him that while he's trying to buy time to heal by talking so much, he shouldn't get his hopes up. The dagger Ben was stabbed with was coated in a vicious poison, and the stew they ate was also laced with poison. The effects should already be showing, and Ben's mind must be foggy by now. Mocking Ben, the demon asks if he really thought he stood a chance of survival. Ben retorts with a witty comment, mocking the demon's vile nature and ugly appearance. The enraged demon furthers its transformation, with numerous strange eyes sprouting from its left arm. Lunging at Ben with its demon claws, it warns him to watch his words. Ben leaps back, barely dodging the devastating slam of the demon's attack. The crushed floor proves his choice to evade was the right one. Analyzing his aura, Ben notes that due to the poison, it's barely half of his usual power, and his aura is nearly gone. However, because the demon's left arm is the only part transformed, Ben knows to target the uncorrupted areas. As the demon launches its grotesque claw at him, Ben executes his plan. Dodging the attack, he readies his rapier, aura set to the maximum. Seizing his opening, he delivers a powerful stab aimed at the demon's neck. But the demon, anticipating Ben's move, dodges the attack and counters. Grabbing Ben by the throat, the demon begins choking him. Mocking Ben, it tells him that stabbing its untransformed parts won't kill it. Vowing to end Ben's life, the demon tightens its grip as the knight coughs blood from the damage. Ben, on the verge of defeat, notices a surprising sight. Aaron, our boy, has stealthily approached the demon, sword in hand, ready to strike. He's come to avenge Horn. In one mighty slash, Aaron decapitates the demon, splattering its blood everywhere. With a deadly glare, he tells it to accept its death by his hands. The demon, having received a lethal blow, screamed in agony. The sneak attack had slashed off a chunk of its head, exposing its skull and the squirming brain inside. Furious, it launched a counterattack on our boy, demanding to know where he had crawled out from. Aaron, quick to react, blocked with his sword. But the blow was powerful enough to send him crashing into a nearby wall, his anguished groans sounding soon after. The demon, getting a brief moment to recover, roared in rage, sparks of crimson aura bursting from its head as it channeled its powers to heal. Holding its squirming, regenerating head, it cursed Aaron. Because of that bastard, it had received a deadly blow and had to waste precious sacrificial blood to regenerate. Gazing at his slowly dissipating demonic arm, the demon knew it had to act quickly. It had to complete the sacrifice of Lady Vivian, the Pantsu Mami. However, his plans were interrupted by a sudden voice from behind. The voice, which it had come to loathe by now, called out Horn's name. As expected, Aaron wasn't done yet. He slowly picked himself up, yelling, "Revenge for Horn!" He readied his attack and charged at the demon, looking majestic in his aerial assault. Their clash, akin to a battle of titans, caused shockwaves, the thunderous sounds reverberating through the room. The demon, being physically superior, yeeted our boy across the room again, sending him crashing back into the wall, but Aaron didn't leave empty-handed. Getting his lick back, he managed to slash the demon's chest, drawing blood. Unperturbed by the crash, Aaron shakily rose again, using his sword as a makeshift cane. He taunted the demon to keep healing, because every time it did, he'd be there to cut it down again. Completely enraged, the demon cursed at Aaron. It was at its wit's end, having to deal with the stubborn and relentless MC. Sensing a tragic turn of events, the demon quickly examined its body and noticed that its demonic arm had begun sucking its own blood. If that continued, it would soon be wholly consumed. Our boy, like a beast from the demon's worst nightmare, cruelly smirked. He mocked the demon, teasing that he had hoped it could take a hit or two, but it turned out to be complete trash. The demon, losing its composure, grit its teeth in frustration. It was truly at its wit's end dealing with Aaron. Aaron, not caring about the demon's feelings, charged again. With his trusted sword in hand, he delivered another vertical slash, the demon barely managing to block it. Fed up with the nonsense, the demon yelled at Aaron, asking who Horn was and why he would go so far. Despite its calm demeanor, it was secretly shocked by Aaron's superhuman strength. The bastard wasn't even a knight. Where did all that strength come from? What the demon didn't know was that our boy had been clapping some rejuvenating Amazonian cheeks. Of course, he'd be hella strong. Sensing an imminent threat, Aaron quickly turned to block a sneak attack. The mysterious assailant, who turned out to be Teabag, mocked Aaron, saying he had great reflexes despite his huge size. Aaron, unfazed, casually replied that he'd been wondering when Teabag would finally crawl out. Teabag, maintaining his mocking tone, replied that Aaron was sharp too, apart from being all brawn, of course. Delivering a heavy attack, he pushed Aaron back and quickly followed up with a combo of repeated attacks. He teased that while Aaron presented an all-brawn, no-brain image to everyone, it was a facade. He was actually as cunning as a fox. Aaron, struggling to keep up with the barrage of attacks, replied that Teabag's involvement was obvious. It was too much of a coincidence for him to arrive at the village right when the sacrifice was underway. The leader of the convoy was definitely involved. Although our boy's deduction was spot on, you don't need much brain power to figure out that a dude named Teabag would turn out to be a conniving, backstabbing bastard. Teabag, enraged, cursed at Aaron. If he hadn't meddled, everything would have been over already. The demon, capitalizing on Aaron's distraction, distanced itself from the fight. It planned to use the brief moment of respite to heal completely. However, when it invoked the demon's power, it was met with rejection, greatly shocking it. The true demon, deeming its body useless, began absorbing its flesh and soul. Despite the demon's screams of pain and promises to offer more sacrifices, the true demon ignored it all, determined to consume it entirely. It had lost interest in the mediocre sacrifice the redhead demon could offer, having already found a more suitable replacement. Back to the fight between Aaron and Teabag, a shift finally occurred. Aaron lost his sword. Furious at the cheap, broken weapon, Aaron wondered if it had been damaged while fighting the demon. Teabag, ever the slimy bastard, didn't miss the golden opportunity. Drawing his dagger, he eagerly moved to end the fight. Shouting for Aaron to die, he stabbed at him, but Aaron, unfazed by the broken sword, clocked him straight in the face with the pommel of the weapon, delivering a devastating blow. Teabag, left reeling, cursed as he dropped to the ground unconscious, lamenting how everything had gone to hell because of Aaron. Aaron, completely exhausted, gazed at the last opponent standing. With a somber expression, he mocked the redhead demon, teasing that eventually it too had been devoured. True to his words, a bizarre-looking demon now stood before him. Its grotesque form was enough to leave someone sleepless for nights. The demon, sporting a toothy grin, called out to Aaron. With its flesh squirming and vile aura radiating, it taunted him, demanding an answer. It desired to possess him and challenged Aaron, asking what he could do about it. It noted that Aaron didn't even have the strength to swing his sword, and, not being a knight, how could he possibly fight his inevitable demise? Aaron silently stared at the demon, unfazed by its words. With a resolute expression, he dropped his broken sword and charged at it. Getting close, he jumped onto the giant abomination. Noting its disgusting huge eyes, our boy opted for the most barbaric approach. He opened his mouth wide and bit a chunk out of the demon's eye, tearing and chewing on its flesh. The demon, amused by Aaron's actions, laughed maniacally, ignoring him as he feasted on its flesh. It deemed Aaron's desperate attempt impressive. Aaron, having lost himself in rage, blacked out for a moment. When he came to, he was greeted by a distant yet familiar sight of two people arguing. As his vision cleared, he recognized them as Gladiator Golgai and Gambler Wei. Also present were the mysterious red-hooded mage, Mommy Avery, and the gorgeous redhead Amazonian mommy from the start of the manhwa. And, just as I predicted, she's hella beautiful. The Amazonian mommy, breaking up the fight, instructed Wei to give back the money to Golgai. From the bright smile on her face, it was obvious this was a regular occurrence. A much younger Aaron was also present, gazing fondly at the strange group. They were his comrades from his mercenary days. Feeling a gentle tap on his shoulder, Aaron turned to see a blonde Chad calling out to him. The hunk, who hadn't missed chess day, was in a tragic state, his back riddled with swords and arrows. He reminded Aaron that he had to survive at all costs. The nostalgic scene suddenly changed, everything engulfed in furious flames. All of Aaron's comrades lay dead on the ground, their blood painting it red. He sat alone amidst the chaos, the only unlucky survivor. The eye demon, likely the cause of the hallucination, opened its grotesque eye, marveling at how delicious Aaron's despair tasted. Its nasty mental chains wrapped around our boy. Sometime later, Aaron startled awake, his lips still bloody from his earlier feast. Ben, who had been MIA throughout the desperate fight with the demon, was now present. He acknowledged our boy, asking if he was back to his senses. Aaron, staring at the useless knight, expressed surprise that he was still alive. Ben, returning the jab, said it was Aaron who should be dead, considering how weak his presence had become as he slept. However, Aaron ignored his words, focusing more on how perfectly fine his body seemed despite the grueling battle he'd just been through. Pulling Aaron from his thoughts, Ben informed him that he had found him unconscious when he woke up, but the red-headed demon, now looking completely drained, was lying next to him. With a cautious look, he asked Aaron if that was his doing. Aaron, ignoring the missing pieces of his memory for the moment, got up from the floor. He replied that he had lost most of his memories of the fight, but it didn't matter. So long as the demon was dead, the method was irrelevant. Turning attention to the sleeping pantsu Mammy Vivian, Aaron asked Ben what her connection was to the demons for them to target her. Moreover, she looked like she didn't even know what had gone down, just sleeping comfortably. Ben, with his usual fake smile, replied that it wasn't his business. Aaron, not wanting to pry, quickly dropped the issue. Taking on a more serious tone, Ben expressed his gratitude to Aaron, saying they were deeply indebted to him. Showing his sincerity, he formally introduced himself and thanked our boy, the guard captain. Aaron, stretching his sore muscles, casually replied, "No worries." We skipped to a funeral procession for the unfortunate villagers. Our boy, also in attendance, was lost in his memories, reflecting on how the pagans had sacrificed an entire village to summon the demon. All of it just to kill Pantsu Vivian. Taking a moment to gaze at the burning pyres and horn, Aaron thought about how surreal it all seemed. Turning away, he left the funeral, finding the smell it gave off unusual. After the cremation, we learned that the convoy turned back and returned to Kasserdik. They also agreed to let Ben take credit for defeating the demon. Since only the two of them witnessed it, it wasn't hard to arrange. Besides, this worked out in Aaron's favor because if people found out he had been in contact with a demon, high-ranking church officials would likely investigate, spiraling the situation out of control. All in all, our boy survived and would be properly compensated. That was all that mattered. Somehow, the pervy thug, who Aaron thought had died, also managed to stay alive. Apparently, the bastard had hidden under a heap of bodies, barely clinging to life. He was more persistent than Aaron had thought. Aaron assumed that would be the end of the mercenary substitute mission, but fate had other plans. We cut to him standing before a mirror, horrified by what he saw. Cursing, he wondered what the hell was happening to him. On his chest, a single demonic eye had emerged, its iris radiating a deadly aura. The eye, fully awakened from its slumber, casually greeted our boy, asking how he'd been. Terrified, Aaron screamed. Without hesitation, he drew his dagger and stabbed at the eye, ready to end it all. The eye, however, easily blocked the attack, mocking him to try harder. Enraged, Aaron yelled for it to shut up. With his dagger in hand, he repeatedly stabbed at the eye, determined to destroy it. His fervent attempt caused a lot of damage and noise, puzzling the bunny mommy downstairs. We skip ahead to find our boy gassed out on the bed, having given up on his futile efforts. Resigned to his fate, he asked the eye what it was, wondering if it was the demon from earlier. The eye replied, saying that's what the ignorant called it. Aaron, frustrated, guessed that the eye must have latched onto him when he feasted on the demon's flesh. He also blamed his memory loss on the eye. The demonic eye corrected him, saying it was taking over Aaron's body by its own will, not Aaron's. Enraged, Aaron told it to F off, threatening to skin the flesh around it if it didn't comply. The demonic eye told him to relax, explaining that the process of transferring hosts took time. Intrigued by the possibility of escape, Aaron eagerly asked how long it would take. The demon answered, 100 years, completely enraging our boy. Casually blocking another of Aaron's stabs, the eye told him it wasn't so bad having it around. To prove its greatness, it channeled and unleashed its power, radiating a crimson aura. Under its influence, sword aura burst from Aaron's blade, greatly shocking him. Startled by the majestic aura, he immediately recognized it as Knight's sword aura, a power solely possessed by knights. But what did a demon have to do with that? Before he could think too much, the aura swiftly dissipated. The eye, taking the chance to brag, asked if Aaron had seen its potential. Despite its big words, the creature looked completely spent, its eye rolling back from exhaustion. Aaron, perplexed by the turn of events, called it a complete weakling. One bust, and it was done. Total trash. Before he could dwell on it, a loud voice called out, startling him. Quickly covering himself like a shy maiden, Aaron decided to hide the demonic eye from Henna, the bunny mommy. He'd be screwed if she saw it. Henna called out again, telling him he had a visitor. The Kesserdic Catholic monastery was looking for him. The emissary, having run out of patience, or maybe just because he's an asshole, shoved Henna, the bunny mommy, aside, opting to find Aaron himself. With a pompous attitude, he shouted at Aaron, chastising him for hesitating when summoned by a noble. With a cocky and very punchable face, he yelled, informing Aaron that Sir Ben was looking for him. Before he could spout any more nonsense, our boy clocked him straight in the face. Serves the bastard right for pushing our bunny mommy. Aaron, the Chad, smiled mockingly after delivering the warm greeting. He teased the man for still having the same ugly face, calling him Jace the Halfie. Gazing at the bleeding Jace, he told him to lie down obediently and wait until he was done. The latter, vexed and a bit helpless, cursed our boy, calling him crazy. We cut to a while later as the two make their way down the stairs. They are met by Bunny Mommy, who inquires if Aaron would be heading out. In a shocking and sensual twist, the Bunny Mommy struck a seductive pose, telling Aaron to return home early. She'd recently learned a new massage technique that was guaranteed to make him feel good. All she asked in return was a mere 50 copper. Our boy, however, wasn't a simp. He casually passed her by, saying he didn't need it. Bunny Mommy, a bit flustered, desperately lowered the price to 40 copper, but our boy wasn't having it. He was a proud member of the Virginity is Cool Club. Just like you down bad Chads. We immediately switch scenes to the boys walking through a bustling market. Our boy inwardly remarks on freaking out when he first got the summons. He had thought it was the end of him, but it turns out it was Ben looking for him. With a smile that could get him mistaken for a charlatan, he wondered if he was being summoned to receive his reward for defeating the demon. We get a brief flashback to the night of the attack. The noble knight had questioned him, asking if it was really okay to give him credit for defeating the demon. Such a feat was highly acknowledged by the kingdom, after all. Aaron, still donning his carefree smile, replied that although tempted, he didn't like the noise it would bring. If Ben really wanted to thank him, then he should share some of the rewards with him. The humble knight readily agreed, inwardly noting that Aaron was sharper than he looked. Back in the present, our boy was lost in thought. Apart from the juicy rewards he hoped to receive, there was a different issue plaguing his mind with restlessness. The demon and the strange power that resembled aura. We learn that aura in this world is a power meant to destroy evil and enforce justice. It is a miraculous ability given only to knights. Typically, only those handpicked and trained by the Empire become knights, with the exact training methods left unwritten, always shrouded in mystery. That being the case, what exactly was up with the demon and its mysterious power? The whole thing seemed eerie and bizarre. Deciding not to dwell on it, he turned to Hafi, asking how much further they had to go. The latter replied that they were almost there, his pompous attitude having survived the punch from earlier. Turning to our boy, he asked what Hafi meant, and why he kept calling him that. Aaron mockingly replied that it meant half of a half-noble, a suitable nickname for a bastard of a noble's bastard like himself. Damn, bro was actually a mega bastard, a super bastard, bastard squared. Hafi, the mega bastard, was understandably enraged by Aaron's mockery. With some manly tears in his eyes, he vowed to kill Aaron one day. However, it turns out that won't be necessary, because our boy is officially cooked. They had finally arrived at their destination, and to our boy's horror, it was the Solar Church, the last place someone possessed by a demon wanted to be. We cut to inside the church. Our boy was welcomed by the regal-looking knight, Sir Ben. He expressed his delight at meeting Aaron again, his smile almost blinding. Noticing Aaron's tense expression, Ben asked if he was startled by the sudden summoning. Our boy inwardly remarked that he was scared of being exorcised. The demon murmured, saying the church was putting him in a bad mood. Ben, oblivious to Aaron's struggle, excitedly introduced him to the priest of the church, Blean. The suspicious-looking priest returned the greeting, saying it was a pleasure to meet the MC. Ben also introduced him to Joanna the Inquisitor, a giant mommy clad in pristine paladin attire. The duo were renowned for their deep religious faith, making the meeting an honor. Well, maybe not to our boy, who was currently possessed. Aaron and the giant mommy stared intently at each other, creating a tense atmosphere. Suddenly, the Goliath mommy leaned back and threw a punch at our boy. Aaron, quick to react, reached for his sword, worried that the Inquisitor had noticed his possession. To his surprise, however, the giant mommy gently tapped him on the forehead. Aaron, puzzled, wondered what the hell was going on. Priest Blean clarified the bizarre situation, informing him that the giant mommy had offered her hand in blessing. Apparently, it was a sign of blessing. Who would have thought? The noble giant Joanna gently bowed, confirming that it was indeed a blessing. Our boy was left puzzled, wondering what kind of religious ritual that was. It was really hard to identify it as such just by looking at it. However, the ritual did seem somewhat effective, as the demon sealed within him was extremely enraged, cursing the underling of the gods for touching it with her dirty hands. We cut to a meeting between the different parties. Priest Blean informed Aaron that Ben had told him everything, including the fact that he had refused to take credit for slaying the demon. However, the church still wanted to express their gratitude and offer a little reward for his achievements. The reward turned out to be not so little, and our boy was left sweating bullets. The good kind of sweating, of course. He had received the church's golden brooch and a mountain of gold coins. Safe to say, Aaron was losing his shit. He hesitatingly asked if it was okay to receive something so precious. After all, there was no free lunch. And true to his worries, the priest highlighted the condition. He was free to take the reward. The only price was helping the church should they find themselves in a dire situation. Aaron was wary of the condition, especially since he knew Priest Blean was one of the corrupt power brokers behind Caserdic. But the temptation was too much. In the face of money, all morals are trash. Balling his hand, he immediately performed the strange church ritual, proclaiming the priest as his father of faith. With a money-crazed yell, he shouted praises for the church. The giant mommy casually eyed our boy, her thoughts too cryptic to analyze. We cut to Kale, donning a flabbergasted face, puzzled by the sight before him. He asked if the stranger had bullied someone, or maybe even stolen their belongings. The stranger turned out to be our boy Aaron, dripped out beyond reason, looking majestic in his new armor. Aaron mocked Kale in return, telling him to take off the trashy flower scarf he was wearing before commenting on other people's drip. He informed him that the brooch was a gift filled with the energy of the god of the sun, and the drippy armor was secured with sacred gold coins as well. Kale teased, reminding him to pay his bar tab with that money instead. Their light banter was interrupted by an absolutely gorgeous mommy handing them their beers. I don't know who the artist for this manhwa is, but God bless their soul. The busty waitress, Charlotte, asked in a sultry voice if Brig would be coming to the pub that day. Kale replied that he wouldn't. The youngest was off duty. A bit jealous, Kale asked why Charlotte was asking about Brig. Did she have a crush on him or something? Charlotte replied that it was hard to see a good man like him around. He was hard-working and caring. Sorry guys, looks like Mommy Charlotte is already down bad for Brig. Better luck with the next waifu. The busty Charlotte, as if trying to wound my jealous heart, said that she wanted to give Brig a sensual massage if he stopped by. Aaron, picking up on that, finally realized who'd taught Henna the bunny mommy such naughty things. Distracted by the beer in his hand, he remarked on missing a cool glass of freshly poured beer. Charlotte, the sultry mommy, unaware of our boy's Reincarnator problems, drew their attention, asking if they had heard of the scammers rampaging in town recently. From the boys' shocked expressions, it was clear this was the first time they'd heard about it. The sultry mommy went on to explain that in the Sick Mermaid Inn, a lot of outsiders had recently been staying there, and as expected, a lot of gambling naturally took place. In that gambling haven, a little girl was dominating the dice rolls. We see someone resembling the pervert lackey, losing his shit. Sweating bullets, he asked how it was possible for the opponent to roll a 6-5 times, yelling that it was a scam. Aaron slammed his drink on the table and immediately got up to leave. How dare a minor gamble in the district he was in charge of? As the captain of the Casertic Guards, he couldn't sit idly by and let such things unfold. Under the puzzled gazes of the sultry Mommy and Kale, he turned to leave. With a sinister look, he urged Kale to follow. They were going to put an end to the gambling. Put an end to it or rob everyone involved. Our boy is giving me mixed signals. We cut to our boy at the gambling ring. With a move reminiscent of his title, Rogue Guard, he kicks down the establishment's door, loudly announcing his majestic arrival. The pub's owner, a bit startled by Aaron's entrance, stutters his name in fright, asking how he caught wind of the pub. Our boy, like a protagonist in those reverse harem manhwas, basks in the glow of his entrance, greeting the owner and telling him it's been a while. The owner, completely flustered, asks why he's there. Hadn't he quit gambling already? Our boy, like a true degenerate, replies that he's going for one last round. He recently came across a shit ton of money, and his hands are itching for some gambling. Picking a seat, Aaron chooses his gambling table, saying he smells money from there. Turning to the kid sitting there, he comments that he heard she was really good with the dice, and he's there to witness her skill firsthand. We cut to our boy indulging in some degeneracy. Having rolled a 6, he happily remarks that they've tied again, and true to his words, the mysterious girl has also rolled a 6. Feeling lucky, or maybe just because his degenerate juices are flowing, Aaron decides to go all in, double or nothing on the bet. The mysterious kid obviously accepts his bet, inwardly mocking Aaron for being a fool. She had lost a few rounds on purpose, but now our boy has become arrogant, throwing money around like a big whale. Hearing a slight cough from behind, she notes it as the signal to start reaping. The big whale won't even know what hit him. He'll probably leave the pub completely naked, having lost everything gambling. Using magic, she starts manipulating the dice, determined to suck Aaron dry. The MC, however, shouts for her to hold the F up. Was she trying to cheat using magic? The accusation greatly shocks the young girl. Like a total noob, she rises in protest, asking if Aaron had proof. Well, young missy, your reaction is proof enough. Aaron, casually sipping his beer, replies that of course he has proof. If his guess is correct, then she should have given both of them a 4, effectively ending the game. And true to his words, the results were exactly as he'd predicted. They both had 4. Taking a darker tone, he bets all his money in hand that the girl was using magic. He challenges her, telling her to accept the bet if she dares. For someone as experienced as him, the scheme wasn't a new one. On the contrary, it was quite common for scammers to use young mages like her to cheat. His words seem to have struck a nerve as the tension in the room triples in an instant. The thugs, realizing they've been caught, immediately draw their blades. They mock the MC for being a perceptive fool, but it's not all bad, because it just made things easier for them. With a menacing tone and swords drawn, they threaten the MC, telling him to drop everything he has and leave. Our boy, still completely relaxed in the tense situation, fires back, asking them if they haven't heard the legendary degenerate quote, "If you aren't sure, then don't bet on it." If any of them knew who he was, they wouldn't be doing this shit. However, he's a generous man, and since the dice game with the kid was fun, he makes a proposal. How about going for another round? The stakes obviously will be higher, hinting at the flashy gold coin in his possession. Tossing the coin on the table, he lets the scammers know that it's genuine gold from the Solar Church, equal in value to 500,000 copper. Damn. I thought I was the only one impressed, but it seems like the thugs are equally flustered. Most of them hadn't even seen that much money before. Their leader, a man with a nasty scar on his face, calls out to the MC, asking what he's scheming. Even knowing that they were scammers and that the little girl was a mage, he still wants to play some more? Our boy, however, cuts his nonsense villain talk short, telling him to shut his hole. He mocks that third-rate scammers like them love to talk so much. The bet is issued. Is he man enough to accept it or not? Enraged, the scammer slams his axe on the table. Of course, he'll accept the bet. He's willing to bet all his money and the little girl's hand. Turning to the girl, Kana, he threatens that if she messes up, she'll lose her hand. Although I've censored most of it, this trash villain has been using some derogatory terms to address the little girl. I really can't wait for the MC to clock his stupid face. We cut to the MC gearing up for the gambling sesh. Addressing Kana, he asks why she's mixed up with such trash instead of being in a magic academy. Did magic not suit her after she learned it? Or is she there trying to earn bread for her academy fees? Kana, a bit defensive, tells him not to assume her situation when he doesn't know anything about her. From the look in her eyes, it's clear this is a sore spot for her. Eren immediately relents, inwardly thinking that from her reaction, it must be because of the money. The trashy leader, making his move, secretly signals his men to be ready. He had wondered what gave Eren the confidence to face him, but from the looks of it, he was just buying time. Not that it mattered, because anyone who was aware of their true identities had to die. Our boy, seemingly oblivious to their schemes, asks his final and arguably most important question. Could she make beer cold with magic? Kana, a bit taken aback, replies that she could. It's basic ice magic after all. But why was he asking that random question now of all times? Eren, however, doesn't reply. There's a devious smile on his face. Looks like some of his Reincarnator problems are about to be solved. Delighted by the news, he smiles broadly, telling Kana she's passed the assessment. Before the puzzled thugs can figure out what he's on about, our boy swiftly yeets their leader in the face, knocking him back. What follows is a beautiful symphony of violence and carnage, and surprisingly, a bit of lore about the dice game. Imagine getting your ass whooped while your attacker is giving a lecture. Poor thugs. I almost feel sorry for them. The dice game is one where 2 dice are shaken in a cup, and when the 2 numbers are added up, the person with the highest last digit wins. This is also called the warrior's bet. And like a warrior, our boy clocks the hell out of a thug that tries to stab him, sending the bastard flying with his punch. In the game of dice, they say that a person who is followed by the moon will never lose. Our boy, maybe one of those people, punches the hell out of another thug, leaving him reeling. The thug's leader lunges at him, hoping to catch him off guard. He swings at the MC, certain his strike has landed. However, a somber voice quickly dismisses his foolish thoughts. Eren chastises him, asking if he isn't ashamed to live off an innocent little girl. With the leader's axe held squarely in his hand, he retaliates, grabbing the bastard by the throat. Choking the life out of the screaming leader, he tells him he should definitely feel ashamed of himself. One of the lackeys, capitalizing on the MC's distraction, uses a skill to sneak up on him. With his dagger raised, he lunges in for a sneak attack. Eren, however, isn't fazed by this pathetic attempt. Acting quickly, he uses the leader as a human shield, letting him take the hit instead. Mocking the assailant, he calls him brave. He had decided to die with his friend rather than live alone in shame. Grabbing him by the face, he feeds the bastard a series of knuckle sandwiches. Kana, watching from the sidelines, is shocked, wondering how it's possible for one man to defeat all those thugs. Not gonna lie, our boy is looking hella rizzed out right now. Kale, finally showing himself, teases Eren for always getting into fights whenever he gambles. He informs the MC that one of the assailants was a famous assassin wanted by the town next to theirs. Our boy, however, isn't the least bit interested in that. He has more pressing things in mind. Approaching Kana, he jokingly calls her Fridge Girl. The girl, however, is horrified, begging for her life to be spared. Eren, brushing off her dramatic reaction, casually asks if she wants to earn some money. If she can make him a cold glass of beer daily, then he'll introduce her to a job that guarantees she makes enough bread for her academy fees. With a warm smile, he extends his hand to her, asking if she likes the idea. If she does, all she has to do is take his hand. Kana, taken aback by the sudden life-changing opportunity, zones out for a while. Eventually, however, she comes to her senses and reaches out to the warm hand offered to her. Of course, she'll take it. We cut to the next day. Our boy, as diligent as ever, is practicing his swordsmanship. Although it might seem as though he's hard-working, for those who know the true details of his tragic past, you'd know it's far darker than just casual practice. Kana, with her chubby cheeks, calls out to him, momentarily stopping his training. Eren, with his rugged barbarian-like vibe, acknowledges her presence, jokingly calling her mini-fridge. Looks like our girl Kana has started that Mappa kind of grind already. Her appearance is vastly different from before. The gloomy robe has been replaced with a noble medieval dress, and her hair is neatly tied into ponytails. It's honestly a huge change for just a day, but hey, who am I to complain? Kana, faithfully serving her role, offers him a mug of beer. Eren, wasting no time, immediately grabs it, downing it in a few thirsty gulps. With a flushed face, he exclaims loudly, genuinely praising the beer. Nothing beats a cold mug of beer. Turning to the cute baby, he asks her how old she is. Kana, with an unamused look, casually replies that she's 12 years old. As expected, Aaron is surprised, and honestly, so am I. He asks her why she's so tiny despite being 12 years old. Was she a dwarf? Before the not-so-baby Kana could reply, a third party joins their conversation, calling out to Aaron. It's the bunny mommy, owner of the Rabbit Inn. With a yandere look, she sternly asks Aaron if Kana is his daughter. Our boy, caught off guard by the outrageous question, visibly pales. What the fuck was the bunny mommy on about? Sure, he'd clapped the Amazonian mommy, but that was it. How could he have a kid? He calmly lets her know that Kana is a mage he'd found on the street. She was short on manpower, right? Well, Kana was the perfect solution for that problem. Bunny mommy, unimpressed, calmly eyes Kana, probably wrestling with the jealousy in her heart. Sure, she needed help with the pub, but was she really going to take in Aaron Poppy's alleged bastard? Seemingly coming to a realization, she lunges at Kana, taking her into her arms. There was no way such a cutie pie would be Aaron's daughter. She consoles the little mage, telling her it must have been hard dealing with such shady adults. But that's over now. She'd take great care of her moving forward, although her words might sound very touching. Honestly, what the fuck is up with that face? Don't tell me this bunny mommy is actually a slave driver in disguise, planning to use the little mage to rake in big bucks. With that dollar shine in her eyes, she asks if Kana can make 300 cold glasses of beer, promising to double her pay. Damn, our little mage is cooked. That's definitely black company treatment right there. Aaron, the bastard, turns away, completely ignoring the injustice our Kana is facing. He casually excuses himself, saying he's leaving for work. We cut to a bit of info about how our favorite Reincarnator spends his days. First, he clocks in and greets the boss. Well, greeting isn't really the right word, because mostly it's him getting yelled at for hitting people. Second, he patrols the market, making sure everything is in order. Of course, while he's there, it's very important to inspect the goods of the merchants, taking some just to make sure everything is in order. Although some of them might curse him, that's only because they're confused and don't recognize his majesty. It's because of him that the thugs aren't spreading chaos in the market after all. And last but not least, he does external entrance checks to make sure everything is all right. Sure, there might be some fools who think they are thugs extorting the local people, but that's clearly a lie. Can such innocent and friendly faces extort anyone? Preposterous. They're just making sure the streets are clean of vile smugglers who are harmful to the people, and if they end up getting some genuine donations from the smugglers, of course they'll take them. You shouldn't turn down generous donations after all. All in all, that's how his days play out. Currently, our boy is at the front entrance of the castle, manning the gates. He remarks that, just like the previous day, there wouldn't be any visitors to the fort that day. Unbeknownst to him, a mysterious silhouette stealthily creeps up behind him. The strange silhouette, who turns out to be a black Chad, whispers a secret code word to him, probably confirming his identity. Our boy, unamused by the strange emo shit he has going on, casually asks if Scar sent him. The black Chad, however, is completely delusional with the emo talk and too far gone to stop. I don't blame him though. Those emo chicks are low-key baddies. He warns Aaron not to speak so casually of Scar, he who controls the shadow of Kasserdic Fortress. Aaron, fed up with the bullshit, tells him to spill the beans already. He doesn't have time for such nonsense. Obviously, this breaks the Black Chad's character and ruins the whole mysterious vibe he had going on, so he decides to just get it over with. He informs Aaron that lately, there have been numerous outsiders entering Kasserdic, and quite a few of them are pretending to be merchants. All in all, they are hella suspicious. Handing Aaron a sheet, he instructs him to read it for more information. The paper basically explains the same thing the Black Chad just told him, but the theme is very delusional and honestly funny. If you thought the Black Chad was too much into character, then his leader Scar is just crazy. Apparently, they had an oath with Aaron. Aaron would be the sun, and Scar would be the shadow, and nothing ever hides from the shadow. I'm willing to bet my left nut the so-called oath is just his imagination. Our boy probably knows nothing about it. Anyway, he furiously scrunches up the paper and throws it away, saying he's too busy for such nonsense. The minion Chad, shocked by the blasphemy against the Lord of Shadows, scrambles to catch it. Aaron, with a menacing look, instructs him to report to Scar, warning him that he doesn't have time for his games. What kind of shadows? Lord of Shadows, his ass. And yes, he genuinely said that. I ain't making it up this time. The minion Chad sulks about Aaron's disrespect, but our boy doesn't care. He swiftly shushes him away. Inwardly, he remarks that many outsiders coming to CHADY is great for their economy. What could possibly be wrong with that? I honestly don't know if he's being sarcastic or if he's just dumb as fuck. Guess we'll just have to wait and see. As he's still busy with his thoughts, an approaching horse-drawn wagon catches his attention. Locking in, he shouts at Carter, the sleepyhead, to wake up. It was time to make some money. Approaching the driver, he instructs him to stop. Soon, however, his expression changes, shocked by the sight before him. This bastard driver was just too suspicious, his villainous vibe too obvious. Deciding to arrest the sketchy bastard, he reaches for his sword. To his surprise, however, Carter walks up and warmly welcomes the new guy, calling him Dornoa. Turning to Aaron, Carter introduces him to the sketchy man. Apparently, the medieval pimp-like man had been transferred from the upper part of Mosark to CHADY. He'd first seen him during a random check a while ago. The obviously sketchy bastard greets Aaron, remarking that he's way more handsome than he'd expected. Acknowledging the captain's hard work and struggles, he pulls out a bag of coins. Aaron, noticing the obvious attempt at bribery, grits his teeth. Just when I thought our boy would drag this bastard out, he does a complete 180, laughing heartily with the sketchy man, even calling him brother. Damn. Money really does talk. Carter, with a flushed face, turns to Dornoa, asking if he has what he gave him the last time. The merchant swiftly complies, pulling out a suspicious capsule full of pills. Carter, like a true junkie, beams at the sight, marveling at how they'd knocked him out the last time. Noticing Aaron's interest, he visibly pales and moves away, begging Aaron not to take it away from him. Aaron, offended, tells him to relax. He wasn't that trashy, after all. Turning back to the suspicious merchant, Aaron informs him that they still had to search his wagon, but it should be okay because he didn't have any suspicious things on him, right? As expected, the bastard sweats nervously at the question before immediately brushing it off. He replies that if he had something like that, he wouldn't have paid the entrance fees. Aaron, keeping an eye on the sketchy pimp, notices an odd tattoo on his neck. Before he can question him about it, his attention is drawn to Carter, who seems shocked by the wagon's contents. Aaron, reacting swiftly to the odd change, opens the wagon. And as expected of the sketchy pimp, the contents are revolting. A bloody pile of rotten and decaying carcasses, all giving off a grotesque look and smell. Carter notes the odd cargo. What the hell was the pimp doing with decaying goat carcasses? Not to mention the obvious maggots squirming in the rotting flesh. At that rate, even the carriage would start rotting. Aaron, with a serious demeanor, questions the pimp, asking what he plans to do with the cargo. The pimp, with his stupid mustache, gazes back at the duo without responding. Aaron, picking up on his odd behavior, curses. He'd known this bastard was suspicious. Just when I thought our boy would finally grow some brain cells and do something, his judgment gets dwarfed by the sight of money. The sketchy pimp explains that the butcher he usually traded with had died in an accident, so he had no choice but to use the rotten cargo. The foolish, money-crazed MC readily buys the excuse, accepting another obvious bribe. With that, they let Dornoa pass, welcoming him to the CHADY fortress. As he calmly drives his wagon forward, the purple pimp looks back at the MC with scorn. Let them just wait. He'd make the place a living hell soon. Aaron, gazing calmly at the retreating bastard, jokingly asks Carter if Dornoa likes high places. Thinking to himself, he recalls the warnings about the sudden strange influx of people into CHADY. Dornoa definitely must be one of those strange people. He mockingly wishes Dornoa well, hoping he'd take good care of himself. They were in the medieval times after all. The only acceptable concepts were innocence or hanging. We cut to the Laughing Rabbit Inn, where a bit of unfortunate news was being shared. Apparently, Charlotte the Mega Mommy had asked Briggs out on a date. The lucky bastard, oblivious to Brownhead's jealousy, sheepishly replied that the hot mommy had invited him to go watch an execution together. Execution? What the fuck? Aaron, calmly eating his meal, commended Charlotte for being ballsy. She apparently had more guts than some of you down-bad chads. Brownhead, the jealous virgin, seethed in rage, cursing his luck. If even people like Briggs could get bitches, why not him? Aaron, finally noting the odd date location, wondered if Charlotte thought an execution was a cultural event or something. They really were medieval bastards. Briggs, the gentle giant, oblivious to Aaron's mocking thoughts, beamingly replied that he planned to gift Charlotte his mother's homemade bread. This revelation shocked the duo, their faces paling visibly. With a trembling fist, Aaron inquired if he meant the dog-shit fish bread. Briggs confirmed this. However, he was surprised by the duo's odd reaction. From Aaron's sulking form and Brownhead's gagging, we can tell the bread was nothing short of a culinary nightmare. Briggs, enraged by their reaction, defended his beloved mother's cooking, telling them that it was a delicacy and very famous back in their hometown. The MC mockingly replied that everyone from that place must have shit tongues and noses to be able to love such garbage. He didn't mean to offend Briggs's mother, but that bread was straight trash. Forget eating it. They should instead set it on fire and burn it. Obviously, Briggs was vexed, but the MC ignored him. He turned to Vermin, the brownhead, asking if he was all right. Before the vice captain could reply, a mysterious arrival interrupted their banter. It was the emo Chad again. As usual, he geared up to spout his edgy nonsense, but this time our boy was ready. With a 1-2 good night, he clocked the bastard, knocking him out cold. Dragging the bleeding Chad, he excused himself. It seemed Scar, the alleged Lord of Shadows, was looking for him. We cut to him still dragging the edgy guy. Damn, just how hard did he hit him? Before him sat an even edgier bastard, veiled in the shadows of the alley. I'd bet you my right nut this bastard is Scar. The sketchy dude welcomed him, reminding him of his oath. Aaron, who stayed in the light, and him, who ruled the shadows, were apparently supposed to take over Caserdic Fortress together. And just as I'd predicted, this bastard was indeed Scar, the self-proclaimed king of the shadows. Before the Lord of Shadows could spout any more nonsense, Aaron swiftly cut him off, asking if he wanted to die. He had suddenly called him out while he was eating, only to spout such trash. Did he really wish for death that badly? And what was up with that trash hat? Saying so, he grabbed Scar's hat and pulled it off his head. Ignoring the Lord of Shadows' shouts for his hat to be returned, he turned to the minions, mockingly asking them why they rocked those hats. Was it a varsity jacket or something? Noticing the group's confusion at his words, he decided to be a bit more forceful. With a menacing tone, he instructed them to take off the hats. The scared minions had no option but to comply. Turning to the Lord of Shadows, he pinched his ear, chastising him for continuing with that trash roleplay even though he'd warned him otherwise. The thuggish dude, although aggrieved, begged him to listen. He had some serious info. Just like he'd told him before, the movements of the outsiders had become stranger. Hearing the news, Aaron paused for a while, visibly surprised. Scar further explained that the suspicious bastards had been meeting up every night, away from the eyes of many. He was certain they were cooking something, and things were bound to go down soon. Addressing Aaron, he urged him to be cautious. Aaron completely ignored his words, pinching him instead. He told him not to get involved. It was the guard's duty, and they'd handle it. Switching topics, he asked the edgy Shadow Lord why he hadn't been going to the workshop of late. His father was looking for him. Hearing about his father, the Shadow Lord visibly paled in horror. Reacting quickly, he immediately collected his minions and made a run for it, telling Aaron they'd meet again. Damn, just how scary is his father to have the mighty Lord of Shadows that terrified. Aaron, now left alone, mulled over the information. Although the trashy Lord of Shadows wasn't so trustworthy, it was better to be careful than sorry. Look at this bastard. Wasn't he the same idiot who willingly let the pimp bastard into the fort? Anyway, we cut to him on the outskirts of the fort, gently knocking on a strange door. Soon, the door opened, and a creepy-looking dude and his child welcomed him. They were the fort's executioner, Dallas, and his son Ted. Ted, obviously amazed by our MC, gazed at him, telling him his armor looked cool, and as expected, the fool grew a big nose, smugly pleased with the compliment. He handed the boy an apple, telling him to eat it. Ted readily accepted, visibly delighted by the gift. Honestly, the moment was so chill and touching that I almost didn't notice the bizarre and chilling weapons in the background. Damn. Aaron also noticed them, remarking that the place was as menacing as usual. Dallas offered him a seat, apologizing for always calling him and causing him trouble. Aaron brushed it off, saying it wasn't a big deal. Besides, the apples were free anyway. It seemed the guard captain had done his regular routine and extorted some apples from the local people. Switching to more official business, Dallas praised Aaron. He'd heard the poor bastards to be executed this time were all caught by him. And to top it off, they were an infamous bunch, widely feared by all, the Lone Wolf Gang. Aaron brushed off the glazing, humbly replying that things just ended up like that. Switching the topic, he complimented Ted, saying the kid had grown up a lot since the last time he saw him. Dallas, like a proud father, acknowledged his words, saying kids really did grow up fast. Handing him a bag of coins, Aaron informed the executioner that it was an advance payment from Nova, the sussy administrator. He further informed him that since the Lord of the Fort was planning to attend the execution, he needed to put on a great show. The creepy dude readily accepted the challenge, replying that they didn't have anything to worry about. Turning to his son, he added that he planned to bring Ted along to the execution. It was about time he got to learn the family business. Damn. Aaron, ignoring how fucked the whole thing was, casually replied that Ted must have finally reached that crucial age. In typical medieval fashion, the farmer's son can only become a farmer, just like the executioner's son can only become an executioner. Dallas expressed his understanding of how things work. However, he'd be lying if he said he wasn't reluctant to pass on such a job to his son, especially with how much criticism and ostracism he'd received from the people. It made his heart really heavy. I don't think he has to worry, though, as Ted turns out to be just as creepy as his father. Look at this fledgling psycho chopping up apples. Creepy mini bastard. Turning to the MC, the executioner expressed his thanks to him. He's one of the few people who treats them really well, despite their obvious issues. Aaron jokingly replied that it was nothing of note. He seemed to be keeping the company of some questionable people, so the parent and son duo fit right in. One of his only other friends was Hans, the panty thief, so you can imagine. Dallas expressed his regret about the tragic incident involving Hans. Who would have thought the young fellow was so down bad? Aaron, with a somber expression, replied that anyone can be a criminal. And that's true, but damn. How can you steal panties in the medieval period? That's way too much and honestly nasty. Them folks rarely bathed. Addressing the creepy executioner, Aaron requested a clean death were he to become a criminal in the future. Dallas immediately accepted, promising to use his ultimate technique on him. Ted chimed in as well, promising to do the same. He'd swiftly cut our boy's neck. Okay, forget everything I said about the kid being adorable. This duo is just fucked up, and the MC is also fucked up for mixing so well with them. Dallas, sporting a gentle smile, informed Aaron that he'd see him at the execution. Our boy, with a hearty laugh, confirmed the invitation. We cut to a dark and ominous alley. As expected of such places, a shady meeting is underway. One of the shady bastards complains about the trouble they've been through lately. Apparently, conducting their covert meetings has been really difficult due to the constant surveillance of Scar, the Lord of Shadows. In addition, their secret operations outside the fortress had ended in a major failure. Referring to Kutan, the demon bastard who got clapped by the MC. Addressing the boss, he asked if they should begin their plans immediately. The boss, however, shushed him, reminding him that the execution would take place in a few days. During that festive event, they'd surely secure the heart of Lady Vivian. As expected, the boss turned out to be Dornoa, the shady pimp bastard. Hearing Doorbastard's words, the minions loudly celebrated. One of them, however, pointed out the weird fellow sleeping against the wall. Was he dead or alive? The weird sleeping fellow was Carter, the drug addict and designated sleepyhead of the group. It seems, although incompetent, the guard captain of Casertic is indeed making some moves.